social media about the benefits. World of Africa at these times on WION.
Hello and welcome, I'm Ananya Datta and you're watching Race to Power. Let's start talking politics. Kamala Harris has been officially nominated as the Democrats' presidential nominee and she is riding on opinion polls and hope. But how far that will take her is what we are going to discuss tonight. Over in Venezuela, election results have brought more chaos. Workers against the president are being asked to quit. And there is a debate to be had on a law against fascism. All of this as protests from the opposition continues. The Democratic National Convention saw some of the biggest names from the blue camp that took to the podium on Tuesday night in Chicago. From the Obamas headlining the event to Bernie Sanders representing the progressive Democrats, the second day saw a resounding wave of support for Kamala Harris. Here's a report on what went down at the United Center on day 2.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Deafening cheers greeted Barack and Michelle Obama. While outgoing President Joe Biden got a long and emotional ovation from the crowd, in his farewell speech on Monday, the reaction to the Obamas was closer to a frenzy.
Chicago! It's good to be home! The next president...
The pair, who still wield enormous influence in the Democratic Party, were treated as returning heroes, delivering back-to-back speeches that ripped apart Donald Trump. Both of them urged Americans to reject the Republican nominee once and for all.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Barack Obama was preceded by his wife, Michelle, a Chicago native, received a grand welcome and began her speech with a message of hope for America. The former First Lady also took an indirect dig at Trump for insinuating that Harris and other Democrats were not real Americans.
America, hope is making a comeback. The embodiment of the stories we tell ourselves about this country. Her story is your story. It's my story. It's the story of the vast majority of Americans trying to build a better life. Look, Kamala knows, like we do, that regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life.
On day 2 of the convention, Democrats held a symbolic roll call. Delegates from each state pledged their support for Harris and her returning mate, Tim Walz. The roll call was held in a party-like atmosphere with a DJ spinning a special song for each state and territory. Delegates sported fun fashions as they attended the evening's events and speeches. Some dressed flashy, others folksy, with patriotic red, white and blue accessories, a common theme.
I'm so excited because the first woman of color to look like me will be the woman inaugurated in my day and time. I never thought it. I never thought I'd see President Barack Obama. And now to witness this as a woman of color, a woman who has fought battles, who stands on the shoulders of trailblazers.
Stage is now set for the 2 closing nights of the convention. Wednesday night, when the party's vice presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, will take the stage. And Thursday, when Harris will close the gathering as the final sprint to Election Day begins.
And to take this story further, we are being joined by Christopher Hale, who has worked very closely with President Barack Obama and Joe Biden in the White House and on the campaign trail as well. Mr. Hale, thank you so much for joining us here on WION. Good to see you. Thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Thank you. All right, let me begin by asking you this. We have been hearing recurring themes of change, joy, hope, forward, future by the DNC, the speakers at the DNC so far, as well as Kamala Harris. But I want to ask you this. For someone who's still in the White House, how does one justify talking about change, joy, and hope?
You know, it's a great question. I think there's the reality, the political reality, and the governing reality. I think that really what the party's arguing, and we'll see if the voters buy it, is that Kamala Harris is her own person and she'll govern in her own way. And I think they're really trying to lean into the biography. Obviously, Joseph R. Biden was a staple of the Democratic Party. He's spoken all but one Democratic National Convention since 1976. So that's 48 years on the national stage. This is only Kamala Harris's 3rd convention. So I think the argument is that she is a fresh voice, a new voice, but the criticism's fair. She does own this administration. She was the vice president. But I think that, and I hope they do, I think there's a lot of things that the American people like about this administration. 3 major bills that the Democrats passed: the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the Recovery Act. I think these are things that she can run on. So it's a little bit of continuity and change. But I do think that tone, joy, is something that really differentiates herself from her predecessor. Joe Biden, something I didn't think was a great idea, him and his campaign really ran on overcoming January 6, 2021, which of course was an attempted insurrection led by former Donald Trump. She's less obsessed with that. She's moving forward.
Right, Mr. Hale, since you say that, but when it comes to economy, unemployment, for example, the war in Gaza, do you think it might hurt Kamala Harris going forward if she keeps staying and sticking by President Biden when it comes to these issues?
You know, it's a great question. I think the reality of it is that she needs President Biden's coalition. So she cannot separate herself too far. To be a Democrat in the United States is to love Joe Biden, at least to be a median Democrat in this country. Of course, she'll need more than Biden lovers to win this election. But I don't think she honestly has any other option. I think she's got to stay as close to him as is feasible. But she can step out on those issues. Obviously, Joe Biden was a hawk on Israel's right to defend itself. She has a more nuanced view and has been a stronger voice, a louder voice at least, for a ceasefire. And, you know, as a campaign strategist who's looking at, we're in Chicago today, I'm looking just 40 miles, 50 miles away from here in Michigan. We need Muslim voters in Michigan who are very upset. And so I think her ability to move just away on some of these issues, I hope that the voters will give her a second look. She is her own person. And I think that we have to recognize that to be a vice president is to serve the administration, but it's not to be the decider of the administration.
Right, Mr. Hale, I'm completely out of time, but very quickly, if you could tell me, you have worked with Barack Obama very quickly. You know what it is to be a Democrat and riding on opinion polls. What is going to be the biggest challenge right after DNC ends for Kamala Harris?
We actually have to talk about policy. If a policy election, we're losing on the policy issues. If this is a policy election, Donald Trump will win. If this is a vibes, that's the word of the day, personality election, Kamala Harris will be elected the 47th president.
All right, Mr. Hale, thank you so much for joining us on WION and getting us all those insights. Good to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
And while the Democrats called Kamala Harris Madam President already, the official Democratic presidential nominee was in neighboring Wisconsin. She was campaigning with her running mate Tim Walz in Milwaukee when she made a surprise visit virtually.
A special surprise. It's my pleasure to introduce our party's official nominee for President of the United States, live from my home state of Wisconsin, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Joining us from exciting Chicago. The delegates at the Democratic National Convention, well, they just completed their roll call. And they have nominated Coach Walz and me to be the next Vice President and President of the United States of America. Just yesterday.
During the speech, Harris first criticized Trump for saying he had no regrets about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. She then spoke about the vision of hers versus Donald Trump.
As we all know, this campaign is not just about us versus Donald Trump. This is not just about us versus Donald Trump. This is about two very different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future, the other focused on the past. And Wisconsin, we fight for the future.
And speaking of Donald Trump, he wasn't very far away from the Democratic National Convention. He was visiting the town of Howell in neighboring state of Michigan. His visit to this specific town has come under criticism. The town has widely been associated with the Ku Klux Klan, a far-right white supremacist group that supports Hitler. In fact, during a march just last month, the protesters were heard chanting, "We love Hitler, we love Trump." Now, Trump and Republican Party have stopped short of criticizing the march.
We're here today to talk about how we are going to stop the Kamala crime wave that is going on at levels that nobody's ever seen before. Over the past 4 years, the Marxist left has waged a vicious war on law enforcement in our country. They've taken away the dignity and the spirit and the life of some of these police officers, and that's why you see it.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is considering ending his campaign, and in some good news for Trump, the independent is thinking of joining forces with the Republican. Speaking to American media, Trump says that he would, quote-unquote, certainly be open to the idea. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Teherani is joining us live from New York. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you as always. How are the Republicans looking at the DNC?
Yeah, one of the weaknesses of the DNC, despite having a lot of theatrics and the optics of it being quote unquote joyful, to use a word that they've been using, and very excited because of Kamala Harris, it really lacks policy. We haven't really heard what the policies of this new administration led by Harris will be, not only regarding the economy, which she set out a few policy memos, but ultimately regarding the border, regarding crime, and regarding other issues that are important to Americans. So, that'll be one of the biggest challenges for the DNC and one of their weaknesses that the Republicans will ultimately have to play on when it comes to policy. But nonetheless, it is a cause for concern for the Trump camp right now, because what Harris has managed to do is to close the gaps in the polls. And she is polling a lot closer to Donald Trump than President Biden.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for all those updates. Shifting focus to Bangladesh now, it has been over 2 weeks since Sheikh Hasina fled the country, and since then a total of 31 cases have been registered against her. 9 fresh cases have been filed on Tuesday. 26 of these charges are of murder, 4 of crimes against humanity and 1 for abduction. These charges are over the latest protests as well as campaign rallies from a decade back. Hasina's son and sister were made co-accused in a killing case for the very first time. The last available data suggests that Sheikh Hasina is still in India, and after fleeing the unrest in her country, with cases registered against her, she is liable to appear before the court. BNP Secretary General has asked India to extradite Hasina to face the trial. Now, a statement released by the opposition party says, and I'm quoting from it, "It is our call to you, India, that you should hand her over to the government of Bangladesh in a legal way. The people of the country have given the decision for her trial. Let her face that trial." Now, it's important to understand here that Bangladesh and India have an extradition treaty, and according to that, both countries are required to hand over people against whom proceedings have been initiated. However, there is a catch. India can turn down any request for Hasina's extradition by citing Article 8 of the treaty, which allows the signatories to refuse requests that have not been made in good faith and in the interests of justice. We are yet to hear from New Delhi. Now, weeks after Nicolas Maduro claimed victory in a contested election, there seems to be no end to the political rift in Venezuela. An opposition leader has filed a legal request seeking withdrawal of Venezuela's Supreme Tribunal of Justice, who is heading a probe into the disputed presidential polls. Enrique Marquez, who was one of the presidential contenders in the July election, has cited the judge's lack of partiality due to certain political ties.
We have laid out in the rescue request each of the findings we have to show. How the President of the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice hasn't hidden in the past nor currently her political ties. And a judge cannot deliver justice if they are not impartial.
The move comes days after incumbent President Maduro ordered the country's High Court to conduct an audit of the election results. However, critics of the president and international observers have shared their reservations on the probe, saying that the court is too close to the government. Following the counting process of the July 28th polls, opposition leaders Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez have claimed that they received over 2/3 of the country's votes and have demanded that the data be released. As political leaders butt heads over the legitimacy of the Venezuela's election result, the divide among people is reflecting in jobs as well. According to reports, Venezuela's state oil company, the PDVSA, has forced more than 100 employees to resign over disputed political views. Labor unions in the country say that this is not an individual case. Other workers in the oil ministry and parts of the public sector have been forced to put down their papers due to their anti-Maduro stance. Local union leaders have revealed that top executives at the state oil company have ordered workers to attend rallies, and that supports Nicolas Maduro. Social media accounts are also reportedly being supervised for political opinions and activity. As the situation remains tense in the Latin American nation, the parliament has pushed to delay a debate on a law against fascism. The proposed law contains provisions that allow the government to ban political parties that have been accused of fascism, neo-fascism and similar expressions. The law also allows fines of up to 100,000 for companies, organizations or media firms that finance activities or disseminate information that quote-unquote incites fascism.
los gringos. Faltó un candidato, el señor González Urrutia. No fue.
Now, crucial cabinet reshuffle has taken place in Indonesia. 2 months before his term ends, outgoing President Joko Widodo appoints close aide of incoming leader and sitting defense minister Prabowo Subianto. President Joko Widodo has appointed 3 new cabinet ministers for the ministries of energy, investment and law. The latest appointments are targeted at pushing the agenda and policies of the upcoming government. Now, Joko Widodo and Prabowo Subianto have been taking steps toward the handover for months now. In July, President appointed his nephew, Thomas, as Vice Finance Minister to advance budget allocations for key policies in the next government. The incumbent president will end his 10-year term in October, despite being a registered member of the ruling Democratic Party of Struggle. President Joko Widodo backed his former rival Prabowo in presidential elections. Prabowo Subianto was elected president in elections that were held in March this year, and Prabowo and his running mate Gibran Rakabuming secured majority with 58.56% of vote share. Vice President-elect Gibran is the youngest son and heir apparent of the sitting President Joko Widodo. Meanwhile, the country's second largest party has appointed a total loyalist of the incumbent president as the new party chief. Golkar has handed over the leadership reins to Bahlil Ladalia, who is considered Joko Widodo's right-hand man. Let's now take a look at what else is making headlines in the world of politics. In the aftermath of Ukraine's recent attack in Russia's Kursk region, the country's electoral commission has decided to postpone local polls in 7 municipalities. The decision comes over 2 weeks after Ukrainian forces launched an offensive in the Russian territory. Russia's polling body has said, and I'm quoting, that voting will be held once there was a full guarantee of the security of voters. However, despite the precarious situation, the Commission said that elections for a regional governor next week will go ahead as per plan in the remaining parts of the Kursk region. And in India, Jharkhand's former Chief Minister Champai Soren says that he will not be quitting politics and instead is open to forming a new party. The veteran leader's statement comes less than 3 months ahead of assembly elections in the state. Soren, who was previously a part of the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha party, has previously criticized the top JMM leadership several times. Polls in Jharkhand are scheduled to be held in November-December to elect 81 members of the Jharkhand Legislative Assembly. We now go across to Budapest to meet the man who is shaping up to be the first serious threat in years to Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Elections are not anytime soon, but Peter Magyar is getting quote-unquote fit for the top job.
Hogy a gyermekosztály békére és igazságra. Tudja azt, hogy a gyermekosztályon még a függönyöket miniszterelnök úr. A magyar embereknek nem
We are preparing for the time when the Hungarian people give us the mandate. Then we should be ready to govern. We are building our community and are involving the best candidates.
I like that he is human, that he is here among us, that he goes jogging, that he goes to the people.
The party building should be a high priority now. So far, it hasn't really happened. They need to build a party where there are competent people who can prove that the so-called one-man show is over and there is a serious organization with professionals whom the Hungarian nation can rely on.
And with that, we are wrapping up this session of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta. Goodbye.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
Shortly after declaring it a global emergency, the World Health Organization is rushing to find vaccines to control the spread of Mpox as other countries, including Sudan, declare another problem: cholera. Anger and protests spread in Tunisia over the detention of several opposition figures and critics of the president, despite the country's election commission declaring October 6th as the polling day, with Kais Saied running for a new term. And Ethiopia's traditional sauna therapy gains big city popularity, with Addis Ababans creating a buzz on social media about the benefits. World of Africa at these times on WION.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you